P. Diamond here in Jacksonville, Florida, and today's project is replacing the switch that opens the tailgate on this 2017 Kia Sedona van. Now it's working fine, however it's hard to see on the video, but the rubber cover that goes over the switch has peeled away, and the only way to replace that cover is to replace the entire switch assembly. So this is the part number for the switch, and I believe this is the same part number for all of the Kia minivans that have the hand operated electrical switch. So this is what the switch looks like, and that's the rubber piece that's peeled away. Apparently this is a common issue on these vans, and I cannot find a video anywhere on the internet that shows you how to do it, so we're gonna have to figure it out. And it looks like it requires de-pinning the connector plug, I'm assuming. So yeah, this should be a fun project. Okay, so in order to get access to where that switch is located, we're going to have to take out this interior trim panel. So there's some fasteners in various places. We've got this style fastener here, which, if you're familiar with that, you just pull the center piece out and the whole thing will just come right out. So there's that one there. Then on the driver's side, there's a cap here, and there's a screw, Phillips head screw in there. And then on the handle assembly, there are two caps, and there are bolt fasteners in there. And then I took off the two access panels that allow you to change the light bulbs or access the tail light assemblies. I'm not sure that's necessary, but I was just taking anything off that I could find. And so the next step is going to be to loosen this screw and remove it, and loosen these two bolts and remove them, and we'll see what that gives us. So it's the infamous 10 mil. The problem is the hole in the handle is so tight. If you put a socket in there, the socket actually gets stuck in the hole. So I'm actually using a 1/4 inch nut driver with a 10 mil, and that's working okay. Okay, that's the handle off. Next up is the Phillips head screw. That's that guy. I'm actually gonna, that's the emergency access for if you're locked in the trunk like a gangster movie. Now the challenge is, I'm not sure if this just pops off, so let's play with that a little bit. Seems to. guess if we break something we'll have to figure it out. Switch to the other side now. Show you inside. So that's what we got, is these press-in clips. So that's one of those deals where it sounds terrifying, but you just got to rip it out. So I actually found that this trim piece here, because it's interlocked, I suppose the first part would be getting that loose first. Oh boy. Yeah, they got it. Oh, scary stuff. Okay, that's where we got to. So this is a clearer view of all of these push-in clips. And if you do break one, you can buy them. It's not the end of the world, but obviously it's preferable to not. And I had one that fell out, so I have to find where that guy goes. But yeah, we're making progress, because now we can start to see the area we're going for. There's more. Let me see if I can get the camera in there. So right here you see that little yellow. There's a screw that's in here that was revealed when you take this trim off. So taking this off first is obviously the proper way to do that. So that's that screw I was talking about, and how it's behind this trim piece. So step one would be to pull this down so you can get the two screws out on either side, and then proceed with the other steps. And just be careful when you lift it down. It's not heavy, it's just awkward. And I'll never hear the end of it if I bugger up my wife's car. So one of these little clips came out right in this channel here. So I'm going to push that back in. It's pretty straightforward. And I think the other one that fell out over here, yeah, it belongs there. Okay, now let's take a look and see the mechanism that we're trying to access. me figure this out real quick. Okay, so I think I figured it out. So there's a fastener there. You can see that silver one. That's 10 mil as well. And it's loose because I've already taken it off. There's another one there by the latch assembly. And then there's another one up there. But if you notice, all of these yellow clips, this is probably why there's no one made a video on YouTube about it. There's another one there. See them all? That is because in order to access what we're going after, this whole outer tailgate panel has to come off. That whole panel has to come off, and I think the safest way to do it is to release these yellow clips from the inside with a pair of pliers and squish them. I'm not very confident that well, I don't even think you can pull them out from the outside, so that's my next step, is to get a pair of pliers and squeeze all of these clips and push them in. And there's an access hole here you can get into with the socket. And again, it's 10 mil. And I forgot to mention, by the wiring harness, there's another plug, a bolt there. And they're all 10 mils. Now on the outside I also undid the reverse lights. I'm not sure you need to do that, but you do need to remove your license plate because the bolts for that go all the way through. And I guess you just muller this whole cover off. Oh boy. Well, after much cursing, I managed to get the outer panel off, but if you can see here, these retain fasteners broke many of them off. Now, I don't know if there's a better way. The problem is, on the inside, some of them you could access to squeeze them with a pair of pliers, but others are just completely inaccessible. As I was saying, others are completely inaccessible, including, well, behind this metal, which is completely inaccessible, these fasteners that hold the panel on. So the only way I could find was to basically rip it off, and that didn't go very well. Like I said, we've got most of these are broken, and then if you remember, the bolts that are on the inside go on these studs. Well, broke that off completely. So this is the assembly from the outside, right? like I say, I could see no other way of getting this off other than to basically pry it until something just popped, and that for the most part meant all of these. Now these ones came out okay, but you're definitely going to have some of these on hand before you start doing this job. If you can see that there, actually broke the plastic and ripped out one of the screws that holds the plastic in there. So there must be something that I'm missing that I don't know. This is definitely not a DIY friendly job, and it sure is a hell of a lot of aggravation to go through just to replace a switch. So I epoxy resined this all back on. I'm actually going to fill that whole void under here with more epoxy to make that stronger. Did the same for the chrome strip. Fill that all with epoxy so that screw retainer will stay on. I'm going to live with that broken clip there because it's right between two screw retainers, so I'm going to live with that. And then I just ordered a 25 pack of those fasteners, the little plastic push-in ones. I'll leave links in the description below, but you definitely want to have some of those on hand before you start this. And now we can get to what we actually came for, which is these two bolts here. Undo those and it'll drop the whole housing that the switch that we need. I loosened these with the wrench before, but drop that out and this whole assembly comes out, and here is the switch that we're going to replace. So 2 Phillips screws and we'll get that out, but then we've got to discover, I think the wiring goes all the way through, and it looks to me like the new part has, anyway, the plug has to be depinned, so we'll work on that next. So on the inside of the tailgate, this is the connector that has to get, I won't be able to do it one-handed, but anyway, and then there's a grommet that goes there. That's it there. So you disconnect that plug and this whole assembly will come out, and we'll do the rest on the bench. So let me get this plug unplugged. Easiest way to do is take a small headed screwdriver and just detent, depress, I mean that little tab, and then it comes undone. And then the whole assembly comes out. Okay, let's move to the bench. So the wires that came on this switch are definitely the electrical connector pins. So there's a couple of options. You could chop the wire and splice the wire and do it that way. I'm going to see how involved it is to open up the wiring loom and get to the electrical connector and change those. Okay, so first step is to free the wiring. So this is the wire that goes all the way through this wiring loom. Oops. Looks to be all taped on. So very carefully I'm going to cut the tape away. You want to be careful obviously because you don't want to nick the wires inside and create an even bigger nightmare. And we'll just put all this back together with electrical tape when we're done. Okay, so we're getting there. So I'm going to mess with this off camera and I'll be back when it's ready for the next step. Okay, so too much light. On these plugs, at least on this one, there's a retaining clip that opens up and then you can see down in there the wires. And you get yourself a T-pin and you go in on the front of the pin and you can take it out. Okay, now remember the order, so black is on the outside, red is on the outside. Okay, so that's that depinned, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull those wires back through the harness and then run the other wires from the new switch in the reverse order. So the next step is going to be to actually finally, I can see now why there's no video of this on YouTube, because it's a nightmare. And I'm sure there's people that work in the industry, body shops, and that are screaming at me that there's some blindingly obvious thing that I'm missing. So if that's true, then please leave a comment in the description and help everybody out that's trying to do this. Let's try one at a time. Let's see if we can feed this wire back out. Okay. So that's the old one. And that's the new one. What a lot of drama to go through. And I'm sure this is coming. The van's what, 2017? So it's only 5 years old. I sure hope I'm not doing this again in another 5 years. So the reverse is going to be putting the switch back in. I guess it would help if you had it in the right way around. Yeah, there we go, that's better. So the local Kia dealership wanted $3.36 each for those retaining clips that I broke, and considering I need a dozen of them, that seemed a little ridiculous, and they didn't have them in stock, which is great. So I ordered them online, which means my bride is very not happy with me. Well, I'm going to attempt to feed these wires. Looks like the wire's shorter. Maybe that's just an optical illusion. About the same. Right, I'm going to feed these wires back down this. And that might be another fun adventure on this never-ending drama. Let me adjust the camera. So if it turns out to be too much of a pain, I'm just going to chop that tube. Yeah, I'm not messing with that. Screw it. Just going to cut the rest of this sleeve off. And again, being careful, because I don't want to have to start soldering a bunch of wires. Well, trying to be too careful. I'm not cutting through this stupid thing. There we go. So I don't know what to tell you. If you're trying to do this job yourself, you better be pretty brave, because it is not an easy DIY project. Okay. Now my boot's inside out. There we go. Okay. So now we can run these wires through to the plug. And then we'll worry about taping that back up again. Okay, with the wires run through, now let's do the black one first. And this is as easy as hear it click. And it's the soldered side up. You're just going to slide it in when you hear it click. And then, so that's that done. The only thing I'm not sure about is the distance here that I need to tape this back together at, so you go back to the van and see what that looks like. Before I go any further, I'm going to actually reattach these reverse lamps, because having these undone made no difference whatsoever. Okay, so the distance from the plug to where the grommet goes through the metal panel isn't very long. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to tape the entire harness up with some tape, and then put this in the correct place, and then tape it again, including sealing that part there. So let me get my Scotch tape. So I'm going to use the Scotch tape 1700. Doesn't really matter because it's not in an engine bay, so it's not going to get really hot. So I'm just going to start taping it here, and then once I get past the point where the grommet goes, I will stop, and then tape up the grommet. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. Bring that back down. It was about there. Actually, I need to take that just a little bit further. Okay, pull that back. If you remember, there was a two grey wires get joined together, and there's a connector in there, so that's kind of where the point. So I'm going to do Tape around here. It's really just to hold it in place, because all of this is inside the van, so it's not going to get any water damage. I'm going to stop right there. Alright, now I'm going to finish taping it all the way back up. Okay. So that's all done. That gets shoved back in there. I think that went. There we go. I don't know if that's supposed to go under there or not. So it would appear that with this out, you can route the cable where it's supposed to be, and with it in, you can't. So it looks better. Get in there. Okay, so that's all done. I'm going to put this back on the car now. So the first step is to route the cable back through. And we're going to plug it in and redo that grommet. Okay, so the grommet's back in, plugged in, it's not rubbing, that'll work. Now, before we get too carried away, let's make sure that it functions. Yes. Okay, with that back in place, we can now put the bolts back in. Quick close up of the glue job I did on that. Filled the whole thing up with epoxy resin. I've ordered more of those yellow clips, and so until that comes in, there's really not much else I can do. I'm going to leave all these little clips in place until I can get this van back together again. I'll put the tag on, obviously, and then probably just going to duct tape over those holes. Okay, a week later, the box of fasteners came. So a quick recap: if you're doing this job, I did some research online, and from what I can gather, these fasteners are deemed a one-time use, and so you're going to break them. The problem that I had with this whole project is this panel is so flexible that when you get your hand behind here and you start to try to pop these out, this whole panel flexes, and then what that causes is the metal panel here, right, this chrome strip, because the white plastic flexed away, it put a lot of pressure on that screw, and so that's the area that I had to epoxy. This row of fasteners here is, you can't even see them because they go into a metal piece. You can't even see these fasteners, so there is no way to get any kind of tool in behind this. So all in all, there are no instructions. I went to the Kia website and their manual said remove the panel, was their instructions. I looked up for how to replace the backup camera, as well as the switch piece that I'm going after today. So all that to say, my concern moving forward is, even though I did repair the pieces that I broke, right, I don't know what will happen the next time I have to take this off, because it's been 5 years. The van's 5 years old. I'm envisioning having to replace this again. So I don't know. I sure wish they'd used a bunch more of these bolts. Apparently in the earlier model of this exact van, that is what they used. There's 13 of these bolts going through, and you undo those bolts to take this panel off. On the 2017 and later models, you're stuck with these clips. So what I'm hoping is these replacement clips are possibly cheaper and maybe a little bit weaker than the factory ones. So I'm going to replace all of these factory ones, with the exception of these two, which are longer, because those two didn't break on mine. But I'm going to replace all of these yellow ones with these new white ones, in the hope that next time I have to do this, those fasteners will break before it breaks the actual parts of the body panel. So let me do that and I'll be back. And they're easy to remove, they just slide in and out of the slot. Okay, I'm going to repeat that all the way around. So that's those all done. This was a 25 count box. I'll leave the link below. These are generic. So that's those done, and then the interior panel survived. None of those clips came off. It probably wouldn't hurt to have a couple of these ordered just in case you do break one. So this is obviously where the handle goes on the inside, so that's what those two holes are for. And then it looks like a fastener's missing, but that's where that screw retainer goes into there. So all of these were intact. All right, now back to the van. And now I've got to remove all the pieces of duct tape that I put on there. Cover up all the holes in case it rained while the vehicle was being used. So let me get all those off and I'll be back. Okay. Next step's going to be to get out all of these and get you up close on that. All these clips that are broken. So I'm going to pull all of those out. It's like I was saying earlier, from what I could read on the internet, these are designed to be sacrificial. I just wish they would break easier before you break the panel itself, but oh well. And the best way I found to get these out is to pull it back, and you can start to see the plastic behind, and then take a pair of cutters and just start cutting it off. And that's just going to be the process that gets repeated all the way around. You can get it to kind of pop that first piece off and then spin it around sideways. It is not. And again, if there's somebody watching that works in a body shop and there's some special tool or technique or some way you could help everybody out, I would greatly appreciate the feedback, because this is a pain in the butt. Yeah. There you go. And on we go. Well, at least the button works, right? So we're going to have to dig all those pieces of plastic out. If you can see them up there, in the position of some of these clips. I mean, there's one that you can get to and reach, but the rest of them are just impossible. I mean, these are behind this panel here, so I don't see there's any other way about doing it other than just to snap them off. And then this is what I was talking about earlier. This is where that chrome strip attaches, right? and when the panel is in place, this is the back side of where those clips are, and it is impossible to get any kind of tool in behind it. And so as you lever this panel to try to get it off and it's flexing, it's extremely difficult. Good job, Kia engineers. Good job. Last one. Done. Now I've got to get all the other pieces out so they're not rattling around inside the door skin while we're driving down the road, because I'll have to hear about that too. So I'm actually sitting in the van holding the tailgate and shaking it around. If you can see those pieces of broken plastic down in there. But we've got to get those out, otherwise they'll be rattling around forever. Shake the tailgate now. Yep, I think we got them. And I've said it before, but if you don't have one of these magnetic astrolights, you should get one. Okay, well, now it's moment of truth. Got the panel back out here. Now it's time to push this sucker back on and reconnect the backup camera wiring harness and hope that we don't have any issues getting it back in. First up, need to get the plug back through the hole. And start to line everything up. So the next step is going to be to get the rubber grommet for the backup camera wiring harness. We've got to get that grommet through the panel, because once you have this attached, you won't be able to get to that grommet. So I'm going to poke that through, open the tailgate again, and get that grommet pulled through from the inside. So that's it there. Okay, that's done. We might as well plug it in while we're here, right? Okay, back to the panel. Okay, so with that plugged in, now we have the moment of truth. That's going to be getting this panel back on. And I guess we're just going to smack it in. I'll look inside and make sure they're all connected. Seems like they are. There's one of the bolts. They all popped through. Okay. Okay, home stretch. I've got the fasteners there, there, and there's one more there. 10mm bolts. Get those in, and then we're ready to put the interior panel back in. So here's what I don't understand. There's clearly access to get a socket in there, but everything else is impossible to reach. Quick word about that. So technically the correct way to remove this interior trim is to pull out this centerpiece first. These two side pieces have, so there's a screw there for the rear piece. There's another screw located behind here, but for our purposes we didn't need to remove the whole thing. We just need to remove it sufficiently that we can get the tailgate piece back in and put the screws in. It's just a question of lining them up with the corresponding holes where the clips go in. Then you're just going to leave these ends open so you can get the screws in. And that's it. So 3 screws. One on each side, and then there's one here in that hole. Gonna get that back in. All you're doing is just pushing that in, lining up the clips, and that's on. Now we just have to get the handle back in. Okay, handle back in. I'm just going to snug those up. Literally just snugging it up. Okay, now it's just all the little plastic trim pieces back on, and we're done. Next up is this little screw fastener. The best way to do that is to pull the insert out, push it in, and then screw that back in. But honestly, you can just push it in with your thumb. And we've got these two go over the screws in the handle. And this one that goes this one's a little trickier because the hole is indexed, so you just have to get that in the right place. There's a guide groove on there, and that's that. And this is the emergency latch access. And then we've got one more light bulb cover. No, I didn't get that in properly. Trick with these is to get the kind of hinges. I'm gonna get the back in first. And there's that done. All done. So all I have left to do now is put the license plate back on, and we are finished. Overall, how would I rate this? Well, it is certainly not an easy job. I see why there's no other videos on YouTube about it. If you are a body shop professional or work for a Kia dealership and you have some tricks, please share them. I don't see any way to get this panel off without damaging stuff. The clips is one thing, fair enough, but the actual panel itself, that's a little bit more scary. So I hope that helped. Yeah, I don't know, it might be worth just taking it to the Kia dealership or a body shop repair specialist and having them replace that switch. I don't know. I mean, I escaped barely without any significant damage, but not real happy with it, but it is what it is. So anyway, I hope that helps. Pete Diamond, Jacksonville, Florida. Thanks for watching.